I can officially say good afternoon because it is afternoon now. So thank you for letting us come and speak with you today. I have a question for you. How many of you have ever made a new recipe and didn't quite get the ingredients correct? Right? Something's missing, something's too much, just not right. Well, I know a lot of things have been going on this week, and a lot of really exciting things. And in talking to some of the participants, it's like, well, we can just throw things at the wall and see what sticks and have that luxury. There's some other things that you really don't have that luxury, and you have to make sure you have all the ingredients right. And that's where bringing consumer insights into play is critical. So we're going to give you some examples of things that work well and some things that work not so well. So again, I'm Theresa, this is Jordan, and we're going to take you through the deck this afternoon. If you're wondering who Curion is, we're an end-to-end consumer insights organization that specializes in QSR and food and bev. So we have a lot of expertise. We have on-site experts that deal in sensory, deal in product and packaging testing, but also a lot of the front-end testing as well. So we'll get in a little bit more into some of those capabilities later, but I'm going to hand it over to Jordan now, and he's going to take you through some of the examples that we have today.
Thank you, Theresa. Okay, well, we're going to tell a couple stories. I think everybody here in this room knows a lot about QSR, certainly, and a lot about insights. Tell a couple things that I think worked out really well in our favor, something that didn't go so well, and what we learned along the way, and how we've partnered with Theresa and her team to kind of get smarter across the board. So hopefully we'll get something out of it, but shout some questions at the end, be happy to help. Well, first, I don't know where Zach went, but I am the insights guy at Popeyes. So I can't take credit for the chicken sandwich. I don't think anybody really can. That kind of was much bigger than anybody expected, thankfully. And so what we do at Popeyes, obviously, we have a ton of different resources for developing those insights. And what you see on the screen here is probably what everybody's familiar with, right? So this is the product life cycle, the innovation life cycle. You start at the beginning, and it's a continuous process. I think what we want to talk about today is kind of where the insights have played a role in maybe the less traditional spots. And so we do have partners, including our friends at Curion, that help us with white space exploration, help us with understanding what are those unmet needs in the QSR space, what are the unmet needs in eating out of home, how do we identify those opportunities to kind of bring that to life for our guests at Popeyes. And then we work to, once we've taken those insights, we innovate, we develop concepts, we validate them, we forecast, we build positioning strategies and copy tests, et cetera. We work with our culinary partners. We work with our outside vendors that bring us some of those great products that we build into our products. And then we throw it into the restaurant, and the rest is history, well, sometimes. And so I think what we've talked about, what we want to talk about today is where we kind of see an opportunity for some of those insights continuing to help us get smarter and help us to build better products that we can launch. And I think what we've seen, and this is probably not unique to Popeyes, is that when you get into the back of house, when you operationalize some of these really exciting things that really hum for us in our restaurant, really hum in our culinary center, and they're delicious. I've sat in stage gate meetings and I've gained 5 pounds in an hour. And it's really great, but when you put it into a restaurant, you lose kind of control over some of that. And there's opportunity to kind of continually use insights to ensure that you have higher degrees of success down the road. So give you one quick example that I think really illustrates this point. This is from CPG, so hopefully it's a little bit new and different from what you guys heard of today. I used to work for a CPG company. We identified this really, really strong opportunity to bring coconut milk in a different format to our consumers in retail. And it was a really, really exciting opportunity. We thought about it from every different angle, what the brand should look like, the packaging opportunity. We changed the formulation of the coconut milk itself so that it could be, so it could deliver against this unmet need in the space. We talked to retail, and of course, when you're in the QSR space, you own your own channels often, but in the CPG space, you have to kind of sell this into somebody else, some other gatekeeper. You pay listing fees. It's a real nightmare. And we were able to do all of that, and it was a huge success. The problem was that the new package we developed didn't fit on the shelf. And so this massive disaster where we obviously blew up this relationship with our retail partners, didn't succeed in delivering this great opportunity for our guests, or consumers, I should say, back to the drawing board, and a lot of scrambling with our co-packer and co-manufacturer and our internal manufacturing teams to solve this problem really quickly. And in CPG, nothing happens overnight. So I think that for us certainly opened this opportunity when we were on the CPG side to recognize that even though we've developed this great insight, even though we've developed this great brand, this great product, and it works great in all these different formats, that the insights role and the job of the insights is never kind of finished. And we have to kind of think about that holistic life cycle to ensure that we're always getting smarter and validating all those decisions we make. So luckily, that's not going to happen to any of you guys, but I think it's illustrative of the opportunity around insights in general. And so I think the two spots where we've been talking about it a lot at Popeyes and where in partnership with Theresa and the team have really kind of upped our game around insights, particularly on the sensory side of what we do, is thinking about the entire holistic opportunity around getting smart with our guests and recognizing that everything we do from a brand standpoint across our entire cross-functional team, that is, and it should be in service of improving the guest experience. And I think when you work in insights and you partner with category folks, you partner with marketers, that's obvious. But when you move a little bit further outside of that like nucleus of the folks who are really touching the restaurant every day, I think sometimes those opportunities are maybe a little harder to find, harder to sometimes articulate, and harder to sell in, candidly. But what we've seen is that making sure that everybody in the organization sees guests and guest experience as the ultimate goal that we're trying to deliver against. And this example here, I think there's a horror story that I'll share from Burger King, my sister company, also before my time, excuse me. I developed a really great opportunity around these sliders, trying to compete with White Castle. I think it was like in the late 90s, Theresa, you have to keep me honest. It's in the notes, but I can't see them here, I apologize. And again, the great example of finding this opportunity, bringing it to life, developing a product, developing a positioning strategy, going after this competitor that you feel like has an opportunity, an occasion that Burger King is not able to meet with its existing menu. And the problem with these sliders is that they fell through the grill at Burger King. And kind of the secret sauce of what Burger King has been able to do over the last 65 years or something is really rooted in the operational excellence of this flame griller that grills your burger perfectly on top and bottom at the same time. So everything kind of has to go through that. That's kind of the nucleus of this restaurant. And of course, something we looked at, I assume, before my time. But when you put those products into a restaurant and it's no longer being developed by your expert culinary team and you're operationalizing it at scale, you lose control of some of how that comes together. And so that was obviously a huge miss. They pulled it off the shelf shortly thereafter, just given the complexity and the disaster of having these little tiny burgers floating around in the bottom of your grill, not where you want to be. And obviously the product experience was not up to the standard of Burger King. Another example that I'll share, not in great detail, is they launched at Burger King a chicken sandwich back when Popeyes kind of changed the game, and a lot of us in this business had to kind of quickly audible and find a way to deliver a chicken opportunity. And I think we had a presenter yesterday talking about how it's the fastest growing. I think it was our friends at McDonald's, in fact. So true data, that's all good, and a great story yesterday. So Burger King jumped into the fray as well. And the challenge was that trying to make this really, really great sandwich in a burger restaurant is a huge, huge challenge. And they had to kind of change course, move away from the Chiking and into a new Royal Crispy, which is doing really, really well, but recognizing that what we were able to deliver in the culinary center didn't always translate into the operational side, and having unfortunately kind of missed that opportunity to explore that in more detail with a sensory partner, with research, and seeing how it really came to life in that context was sadly a miss, but luckily something we were able to rebound from. Is this working? There you go. So wanted to take a look at another example. Looking at my notes here. So in this case, we saw an opportunity. I'm thinking back to my CPG days, thinking about what we heard from our friends at Plant Burger. We were a couple years ahead of this clean label push, thinking about socially responsible, environmentally responsible practices, and wanting to improve our products and deliver to our consumers things that they wanted to eat. And I think about the Chipotle slogan, like they only have ingredients that you can pronounce, and like that was an ideal that everybody in this room and certainly in the CPG space kind of rallied around, certainly over the last 10 years. And so this seemed to us in my previous role in the CPG context as an easy win to deliver better products, better quality, cleaner ingredients to our guests. And again, a lot of work went into this, but again, from an outside perspective, the product isn't changing, right? You have the same brand, the same product, the same use case. We're just taking some of those less desirable products. I wouldn't even call them chemicals, but some of the things that we wanted to kind of move away from and get to a cleaner ingredient list on the back of that package. Seemed like an easy win for us. The challenge was that our heaviest consumers immediately noticed the difference. And sadly, it wasn't something we really spent a whole lot of time thinking about because we thought, we're making it better. What could go wrong? And it wasn't even that it was bad per se. This is in the chicken stock space. It was just that it was different. And that immediate interaction with our consumer, especially our heavy consumer who buys and uses a lot of our chicken stock, was a big, big miss. And we actually had to reverse course and go back into that. So I think you think about the opportunity in an operational context in the back of house where you're thinking about ways to improve your experience, to improve your back of house operations. And this is a simple, easy win for your brand, you would think. And the reality is that this is another example of when all of those changes that you are making, especially when you're dealing at scale with however many restaurants you have in your system, whether it's 15 or 1,500 or 15,000, all of those changes are going to have an impact on the way your food is delivered and the experience that your guests are having in the restaurant. And so you can never be too careful with that. And being able to think about that holistic opportunity and thinking about how to pull insights in, how to talk to your guests at every stage of that development. So identifying the opportunity to kind of clean up your menu, making sure that you're not eroding some of that loyalty with your guests with whom you have the strongest relationship, and checking with them to understand, are we hitting the mark? Where are we missing the mark? Where are the opportunities to get stronger? I know Theresa has a couple examples like that in a moment that we'll share. Share another example here. So obviously, over the last couple of years, we've all been struggling with supply chain. And certainly for Popeyes, the challenge almost was exacerbated by the success we had in 2019 and 2020 with the chicken sandwich. So we launched the sandwich, it blew up on Twitter, there were lines out the door, you couldn't get one unless you wanted to go to eBay and spend $500 on a sandwich that God knows how old it is. I did not do that, and I hope none of you did either. And we actually had to shut down production in our restaurants of this sandwich that was basically minting money. One of the best launches, certainly in our history, one of the top-selling QSR launches maybe ever, given the volume that we were doing. But we hadn't really forecasted, and we really couldn't forecast for this becoming a viral meme on Twitter. Nothing that you can anticipate for, and something that you can't pick up even with the best research, unfortunately. And so we had to shut down the product and rethink through our entire supply chain, bring in other suppliers, and build contingencies around how to kind of deliver against this new demand. And part of that conversation was, okay, well, we've historically been with a particular set of suppliers around a particular size chicken to get a particular quality of this chicken sandwich. Is there flex opportunity there? And this was a great example, working with our supply chain partners internally. Normally, they work in a little bit of a silo, right? So you present them with the business challenge. Hey, guys, we need more chicken. That's basically their brief. And they say, OK, let's understand the food and paper costs. Let's go out. Let's find partners who can deliver that at scale for our restaurants, integrate that with our distribution centers, et cetera. I think we were, having been through what we did in 2019 and 2020, having seen some of these misses in other spots, the Burger King examples and some of my experience in CPG, we couldn't be too careful. And so the challenge was, if we're going to move out of this existing supply, are there other suppliers that are going to deliver the exact same experience to our guests? And I shouldn't say moving out. I think thinking about contingencies, really, of making sure we had supply sufficiently. And we tested this 1,000 different ways with our consumers, with our guests, with Theresa's help, to make sure that there was no miss here and that whatever changes we made were not going to adversely impact the guest experience. And the truth is we had some, sadly I can't share them in great detail, but really surprising results that certainly helped us think about supply in a new and different way, but also increase some of the positive reactions we were getting from our guests. So what started off as a purely business supply chain opportunity turned into an opportunity to really surprise and delight our guests in a really positive way, to continue to build that really strong partnership with our franchisees, with our operators, with our crew on the front line, and most importantly, with our guests. So I think that's it for me. I'll pause and I'll pass it back to Theresa, and you can talk us through some of the methodology stuff.
Thank you. Yeah.
Sure.
So at Curion, we have what we call our product experience performance blueprint. And here is where we have touch points at every phase of the product development cycle. So from an exploration standpoint, really digging deep and finding what are the possibilities for your brand, what makes sense, where do consumers allow you to go, and what might some of those opportunities be. Then taking that into developing the ideas and bringing them forward and testing them and see what sticks, see what might not stick. And then validating those with consumers to know that when you go to market, you have the best chance of success. As we get into some of the commercialization and renovation, that's where we've been partnering a lot with Jordan and the efforts that they have, is just making sure that as we move forward, we're not jeopardizing the guest experience. That if they come to expect a certain flavor profile from the chicken that they're getting at Popeyes, that continues with any changes that we make, and keeping those ingredients true to what they would expect. Now we have a huge laundry list of potential things that we can do to help support your efforts. And the reason that we have a laundry list is because no problem is the same. So we tailor the solution based on your objectives. And that's the first thing we'll do, is sit down and what are your objectives? What are the decisions you're trying to make? And then what's keeping you from making those decisions? So helping you to really understand what's at the crux of what you're trying to solve, and then working through solutions for that. So whether you're looking at implementing and trying to understand why consumers aren't interacting with your app, to optimizing menu boards, to developing LTOs and new product offerings, we have the processes in place to work with you to identify the correct way to do that. Makes me think of Zach's example yesterday with the honeycomb example, and I'm sure they did a ton of research to say that, hey, this is a good product to go to market with. But as he's telling the story, I'm just wondering, did they actually test the new formula with their loyal customers, and they would have known that they've deviated too far from the norm, or too far from their true product, and no longer are appealing to the ones that are really advocates for their brand. So you want to make sure you're hitting on all aspects from that perspective. A little bit more about who Curion is. We have our own facilities, testing facilities. So we have commercial kitchens that we have our QSR partners come in, and they prep the food right there and we test. We have databases of over 500,000 consumers that we bring into our test markets and for testing. Some of our QSR clients that we work with on a regular basis listed here. So we have partnerships across the U.S. And one of the things that we've launched in the last year and a half now is what we call the Curion score. And many times when our clients are, testing products, we test in a silo and we get their scores, and it's like, well, is this a good score? How should I look at this? Is this something that I could consider good? And which one of these are the best when you have similar scores across several products? And Curion score takes into consideration over 500 million data points that we have on product testing that we have done, and benchmarks it against the category. So when you're developing that next great chicken sandwich, you can test and you can see, where does your chicken sandwich fall in relationship to everything else that we've tested in the past.
Can I jump in there for a second,
Sure.
Theresa? I think I'm reminded by something our friends from Subway said yesterday. Your brand is too important, or your app is too important to outsource it to startups. And I think when we were thinking about some of this work that we were doing on the sensory side, we wanted to find a partner that had these capabilities and were able to add a ton of value into the conversations we were having. I am not a sensory scientist. I am not a culinary expert. I'm just a curious guy that works in market research. So we needed someone who, and I think I think what Theresa is describing in the earlier slide where she talked through kind of the full life cycle and scope of what they do is exactly what we needed to ensure that the work we were doing was delivering against that need to be guest-centric throughout that process.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, well, time for key takeaways,
Yeah.
which I can't see on my screen, so I'm going to remind myself what they are. So I think what we were talking today is about, if we could skip ahead to this slide on the front, that would be really helpful. Thank you. One more. Perfect. Thank you very much. So I think the learning for me and what I wanted to share with you guys is thinking about using guest insight, consumer research, and certainly sensory research to go kind of beyond the typical bullseye of where you'd be using that. So obviously developing a new sandwich, obviously trying new products, et cetera, talking to your guests to make sure that it gives the mouthfeel or the flavor and the stuff that Theresa mentioned, but recognizing that there are other applications to using that and other spots where the guest is going to be interacted by the decisions you make on the supply side, on the ops side, and recognizing that leaving it to chance is obviously not where we want to be, and recognizing that the folks who are building your sandwiches or building your products in your culinary centers, they are not the folks who are on the front lines doing this every single day, day in and day out. And so thinking more holistically about and opportunistically about when you can pull insights in to kind of inform that perspective. And then thinking about ways to go beyond kind of that traditional test. So we have a whole suite of tools beyond our partnership with Theresa and team that help us kind of find those white spaces, think about the different ways to validate and optimize our products. But are there spots where we can get smarter? And I think Theresa talked through some of those where we have certain biases internally. We think a certain way about our product. We think we're doing God's work by taking the ingredients, the dirty ingredients or the dyes or what have you out of your product. But if it doesn't deliver for your guest or for your consumer, you've missed the mark. And making sure that you're being comprehensive in the way you approach that. And then I kind of already stole my thunder on the last slide, but I think making sure that we have the right research to avoid those challenges and to partner with the folks who challenge our thinking. And Theresa's a great example of this. As an insights person, I hate when my brand partners come to me and say, I want you to run a concept test. And I say, come to me with a business challenge, come to me with an opportunity, and we'll solve that together. And then, of course, I tend to be the worst client, and I go to Theresa and others, and I say, I want you to run a taste test. And so I want that same pushback from Theresa and says, no, that's not what you need. What you need is a more comprehensive approach to make sure you address problems A, B, and C, or questions A, B, and C. And so I think we've gotten a lot. It's been a two-way street, certainly, where I've learned a ton, and it's certainly helped to improve the way we approach guest research on that sensory side, to think more holistically about it. So I'll stop there. Thank you very much. Thank you, Theresa.